Welcome viewers to another episode of Media Track, the media channel, not exactly channel, but the media analysis program on CCR TV where we look at the biggest stories of the past week. I'm Devika Sequeira and with me is my colleague
Ashley Rosario.
Well, Ashley, this week we have to start with the Bhumi Puja at the Ram temple that's coming up in Ayodhya, and that was the culmination of so many years of of conflict, and also there was the Supreme Court order. Anyway, so probably we should start by looking at the headlines and how it was reported in the media. The Times of India said, at Bhumi Pujan PM, Prime Minister likens Mandir campaign to freedom movement. And he said, Ram was liberated, still the basis of our culture. And he also said, Jai Siya Ram, a subtler message than Jai Shri Ram. And another comment of his that was highlighted was that Ram is popular in Muslim nations too. From the Congress, there were some people who supported it, the construction of the Ram temple, which will begin. Rahul Gandhi was measured, but most of Congress was enthusiastic. And the Congress, if you recall, Priyanka Gandhi issued a last-minute statement, so they also wouldn't be left out. In Herald, we have the headline which says, PM said that wait for centuries ends, Lord Ram's birthplace is liberated. And the Navin Times said Ram belongs to all, the Prime Minister's statement. And the first bricks laid by Modi for Ram temple in Ayodhya was the headline in Navin Times. Now, to put things a little in perspective, one has to, the headlines said something, but the editorials were more measured. So, the Wire had a composite kind of article where they looked at all the editorials, and they said that day after Ayodhya temple ceremony, newspaper editorials recall mosque demolition because the temple is coming up in the place where the mosque was demolished. So these editorials are pegged on Ayodhya Ram Mandir Bhumi Puja that took place on Wednesday, attended by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So it says the demolition of the Babri Masjid in 1992 on the same spot where the temple will now be built brought down the foundational vision of the Republic and the principle of secularism, newspapers argued. They called for restoring the Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb, which Ayodhya signifies, and for reclaiming Ram as a symbol of unity through compassion and empathy. So they quoted several editorials. One was from the Telegraph, which is a Calcutta-based newspaper, and that editorial said during the resolution of the Ram temple issue, with the case dragging on for decades and being accompanied by widening fissures in India's body politic, amity was rare and almost absent among contesting parties. It said a reason for this was the demolition of the Babri Masjid. Then they also quoted from the Hindustan Times, and the Hindustan Times said, also insisted that Ayodhya is a sign of Hindu faith, make it a site of secularism too. And coming to the Times of India, the Times of India said BJP must seize the moment to shape an overarching national unity based on social cohesion. Reconciliation offers hope for repairing civilizational fabric. So, there were a lot of positive stories. There was also a lot of negative comment on this, and to just show you, Ashley, let me just come to this. The views of the international media, the Some of them talked of the widening panning of Modi's handling of COVID-19, and you had Edmund Roy writing for the Lowy Institute's interpreter blog. So it said the Modi government has effectively abdicated its responsibilities in confronting the pandemic. Meanwhile, it's been intent on silencing any dissent, cowing the country's media into reporting the official version of events. So then it talked of COVID-19 as just one pain point. This week, the Prime Minister laid the cornerstone of a new Hindu temple on the former site of a 16th century mosque, in place where the Hindu god Ram is believed to have been born. And The Economist, which can be quite critical, it called the site a perennial campaign issue for Modi's party. Then you also had Arundhati Roy writing, she wrote an essay in The Guardian, and she said just about every illiberal sin Modi has committed in the eyes of his opponents: the pandemic response, the new temple, the Kashmir crackdown that began a year ago this week, the border clashes with China, the citizenship registry seen as courting Muslim disenfranchisement, and ongoing tension with Pakistan. So, in a wide-ranging broadside against Modi's Hindu nationalistic politics, Arundhati Roy wrote, "Only the naive or the hopelessly indoctrinated can still believe that hunger and joblessness will lead to revolution. That temples and monuments cannot feed people." She said they can. The Ram Mandir is food for millions of starved Hindu souls. Well, I suppose one can't get more critical than that. How did we look at it here in Goa, actually?
I don't think the Ram temple issue resonates much in Goa. It's more a North and Central India sentiment. Like, for example, even the south of India, except for parts of Karnataka, the Ram Janmabhoomi Babri Masjid issue didn't really find traction in the political arena.
Yeah.
But yes, we had the local BJP cadre going around in cities in jubilation on that day. But Devika, the reaction of the Muslim side is something that no one has paid much attention to.
Yeah.
There are two things. One, as of today in the political arena, the Muslims are kind of represented by Owaisi.
Right.
And he, made a very telling comment saying that, Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister, had no business to be at Ayodhya, for the Bhumi Pujan. Narendra Modi, the citizen, could have been in Ayodhya. So the point Owaisi was making on behalf of the Muslims was that, in this kind of subjects, the state has no role.
Exactly.
Okay, the country and the state has no role. The people have.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is one. Second is the IC reports that say that the Waqf board that has been given possession or is going to be given possession of 5 acres elsewhere to build a masjid is believed to have made a decision that they will not build a masjid, but they will build a hospital and a research center.
That's true.
Okay, so very interesting development from the Muslim side.
Yeah.
So let's see, this is history in the making.
The future of India in the making, if you ask me, because now, actually, if you look at it, look at the statement made by Seshadri Chari, total, RSS man. He says, after Ayodhya, Kashi and Mathura will be easier. It's the, Pakistan-occupied Kashmir that poses the big challenge for the BJP. So he says Ayodhya is the beginning of a new Hindu Renaissance movement. India must channelize this energy to foster unity and work for economic resurgence. And there was also, quite telling his statement, the glorious event in itself was unique in many aspects. Use of the foundation laying and inauguration ceremonies as a pole plank is not new in Indian politics, but this is probably the first time that a court battle has resulted in closing the chapter of the struggle that spanned over years. And so now the two other things he talks about is Kashi and Mathura, and he says that it is clear that the RSS and the BJP are working as a team with their ears to the ground and have a better understanding of the Hindu sentiment. So, this is going to be the future sentiment, I think, in India, if so long as the BJP stays in power. And it looks like every other party is going to have to fall in line with this if they want to court the majority vote.
If you look at it from the political or the electoral politics angle, then yes, and we see that happening. I mean, you can't believe the Congress taking a kind of a pro-temple stance, even if it is, indirectly. But they are doing it. And so are a lot of other parties other than the left. Like for example, Priyanka Gandhi, who is seen as the part of the leadership in the Congress, made a very strong pro-Hindu or pro-saffron statement a few hours before the Bhumi Pujan, which drew a lot of criticism on social media and in other media circles. But I think the focus is electoral politics, not nation building, or not kind of healing the divide that is so brazenly happening in the country.
And there was some very, very heavy criticism for so much energy being expended here when especially the Telegraph talked about the failure of this government, the salary crisis, then it talked of vanished documents on China, and how the economy is doing so badly, etc., etc. But now let's move away from the Ram Temple issue and look at the biggest story in Goa, which is the deaths rising in the coronavirus crisis. And so do you think, Ashley, that this appointment of the GMC specialists to treat COVID patients, and the appointment of setting up of a committee of doctors, etc., specialists, will have some effect on how Goa handles the pandemic from here on?
I think better late than never that they did it.
Advisory committee.
Not really advisory committee. It's a committee that would decide the treatment protocols in the COVID hospital. We have 3 private doctors who have been drafted into that committee, along with senior doctors from the GMC. Devika, this is something they should have done from day one. When the ESI hospital in Margam was designated as the COVID hospital, because in the first place there was so much of uncertainty, scientific uncertainty about this virus and what and what effect it could have on people. So it was very imperative that the government should have appointed experts and medical practitioners who had immense experience to kind of direct the regimens, the medical regimens in the hospital. Didn't happen, and we relied on one hero. That was Dr. Edwin Gomes, who did a splendid job, no doubt about it. But when the numbers started growing,
Right.
you can't expect one man to
Exactly.
be one man to be
so
a superman.
there is still this question about the Dr. Ira Almeida being transferred, and why was she transferred, etc. And was that a right decision to take? That has been playing up a bit, on social media. In some, So
I
that
don't
was-
quite fault the decision, but I fault the manner in which it was done.
Okay.
Okay, because the problem has outgrown the system that existed in
Right.
in the COVID hospital. So therefore, these decisions have been taken, and they have been taken.
Yeah.
And now the COVID hospital is directly under the charge of the Goa Medical College.
Okay, but there
Okay.
is also this terrible confusion over testing, and people's experience. Regular people just having to wait 4 hours, 5 hours. This report in Times of India talks about someone having to wait 5 hours to get tested at the North Goa District Hospital in Mapsa. How is this so bad? Still, after all these months, we haven't got this sort of streamlined in any way.
Yeah, the Devika, this district hospital, Goa Medical College, and the South Goa District Hospital, these are government systems.
Yeah.
If you, go deeper into that, if you have ever gone to these hospitals as a patient,
Yeah.
it's a nightmare.
It is a nightmare. It is.
In normal circumstances.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's playing out here also. How will it be different? It won't be different.
Yeah.
Unless they kind of, like how they have done now with the COVID hospital, putting in, a dozen of doctors,
Yeah.
of reputed doctors in charge. So there is some sort of a responsibility. Otherwise, you have that same old system.
Yeah.
The same old system taking care of a new problem.
Well, there was another thing that came out in the reporting also, is that the MLAs are missing in action, but members of civic bodies are helping out. Councillors are helping out. They're getting into this. Sarpanchas are helping out. So this is quite an amazing thing that is happening. And,
Yeah,
and where are these MLAs that that are there to sort of ask for your vote, and they just go missing when there is such a huge crisis happening?
Devika, these councillors, sarpanches, panchas, these are the grassroots people. These are people who are,
Working at the ground,
Yeah, so they
literally.
are in touch with the community.
Yeah.
So when there is something going wrong in the community, it is but natural that they will come into the picture.
Yeah.
As far as the MLAs is concerned, thank God they are not in the picture. Okay, because they would only add to the confusion, compound the problem. Like for example, in the initial days of this pandemic, when the lockdown was on, all that the MLAs did was, throw their weight around to
Right.
curry favors for
Their own people.
their own people, which we have seen so
Yeah.
openly.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's good that the MLAs have become invisible.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Okay. And yes, you're right. A lot of these councillors, a lot of these sarpanches at the grassroots level are doing their bit.
Yeah.
Are doing their bit. But having said that, Devika, this should have been the strategy of the
Exactly.
of the
People
government.
at that level should have been
Exactly.
involved. They should have put some systems in
They
place.
should have put systems in place at the grassroots level, at the micro level.
Yeah, true.
Since the disease is now, the virus is now entrenched in
Absolutely.
Goa, the way to tackle it is to tackle it at the micro level,
Yeah.
which is not happening.
Yeah.
Now, for example, you go to the containment zones, where you have large number of cases. Chimbel is one. Like for example, Chimbel yesterday alone had
Yeah.
30 new cases.
Okay.
Yesterday alone they had 30 new
Yeah.
cases. That's a dangerous place.
Yeah.
Chimbel, Zuarinagar, where you have these, cluster of slums.
Right.
That's where the problem will go out of hand if it is not tackled at a micro level.
Yeah.
Another thing that the government has failed to do, which I think should be done, is that you have this huge army of government servants
Right.
who are as of now doing no work. Okay, some sort of a redistribution of government servants frontline work has to be done by the government.
Yeah.
Some rationalization has to be done. Otherwise, what is happening is one health department is shouldering the entire burden.
Right.
And-
but there was also another point a doctor made to me, and he was saying that a lot of people who've come out of this coronavirus, who've gone through this and have survived, they should have been employed
Exactly.
and
So-
deployed to help out, you know,
The
and which
follow-up is
government
not
hasn't
being done.
at
The
all.
follow-up is not being done. The
Yeah.
follow-up is not being done, and you know, even like for example, now they have permitted people who have tested positive to be home quarantined.
Yeah.
You know, what is the follow-up being done on them?
Right,
I don't
exactly.
see anything happening.
Yeah,
you know.
that's true. So let's now get away to a little more amusing story, which is that, you know, from the Congress, Ravi Naik's two sons have gone to the BJP. I mean, it was expected, and there was this constant drumming up of their joining in the media, and so finally they have. And the BJP has been embarrassed to some extent, I would say, with you know, having to answer to whether the Roy Naik, who is Ravi Naik's son, did have links to some drug cartel or ran something like that was the allegation the BJP had made itself, and now the BJP has been caught in a little bit of a bind with that, and so they said at the press conference that this is not that Roy that they talked about. This is Roy Ravi Naik, and Roy Naik is probably somebody else. Now, isn't that ridiculous? Absolutely.
But then, you know, politics and politicians are known to change their stances.
Obviously.
And if you remember in the 2017 elections, on the eve of 2017 elections, you had the late Manohar Parrikar embracing people like Mohan Gudino and Madkekar,
yes,
who he has, you know, virtually built his political persona on.
Exactly. Attacking them. Yeah.
So
exactly.
so and he brazenly, you know, kind of explained that decision of his, and it worked.
Yeah.
The most comical part of it is that it works.
It's not comical, you know. There's so much hypocrisy in this whole thing that if you are with the Congress, you are, you know, you are completely corrupt. Once you enter the BJP, you're somehow, you know, washed. All the corruption thing gets washed away, or you're sort of purified by just stepping into the BJP. Your sins are forgiven. But to come to a more sort of ground level, do you think this will affect the Congress in any way? I mean, as somebody who's watched politics very closely, I don't think it will. It's, in fact, in my opinion, it is good for the Congress because they were always having a problem of how to accommodate these two sons of Ravi Naik, who are already sort of tarred by some media projection of them being corrupt, though nothing has ever been proved against them.
Devika, going forward, I don't know what the Congress is planning to do, because I don't see anything happening on the Congress side either. What the BJP is doing is, it is, you know, just gobbling up every political.
It's basically gobbling up any kind of opposition, any kind of.
This is something that the Congress used to do 25 years back.
Yes,
you know,
I suppose
like
so. They've learned from their own enemies how to kill the enemy.
Yeah, but what I've been talking to some of these politicians, to current day politicians, there is one thing that all of them are worried about. One thing that they are worried about is, with this whole COVID pandemic playing out,
getting re-elected.
With this whole COVID pandemic playing out, they are afraid of what the mass reaction to politics and politicians is going to be. So they are afraid that it is very, very clear you get into a conversation with these, you know, political satraps, and,
Yeah.
and you get a picture from there. Like earlier in our discussion, you were saying, where are these MLAs? They are
Yeah.
missing.
Yeah.
They are missing because they don't know what to do. They don't know how the people are going to react.
Yeah.
You know, so because this has affected people in their day-to-day life, this entire pandemic has created a very difficult situation for people, and so we will see how this Ravi Naik sons joining
Right.
BJP, and whether as the elections approach, whether Ravi Naik himself will make the jump.
Yeah, but you know, Ashley, I would like to end that little bit with a quote from Aap, which I got today from Valmiki Naik.
Okay.
He has posted, you know, Arvind Kejriwal's quote. He says, "My earnest appeal to all BJP supporters in Goa. You voted for Ram Rajya, but instead you got Roy Rajya." I thought that was brilliant. And it's quite this. So on that note, we will end the program because we've run out of time. Thank you so much for watching.